everyone, in this tutorial I'm just going to be showing you how to turn that beautiful basic lace stitch into an infinity scarf. So obviously if you will need to watch the other tutorial that I will link down below on actually how to do the stitch, but I will give you all the relevant information now as to the dimensions of this particular scarf. So I was using that beautiful rainbow yarn with the sparkle through it, and again all the information's in the other video, and I used a 4mm hook, but the basic dimensions that I have done for this particular scarf, it is 6 inches wide, and so for that measurement with my 4mm hook I did my foundation chain of 32 plus those additional stitches at the end. So that is how wide I made it, and the length is completely up to you. Obviously it just depends how many times you want it to wrap around and things like that, but my finished one here that I've done is 52 inches long at this point. So it's 6 inches wide and 52 inches in length, and that's approximately. So obviously it's a really quick project to do. If you're using thicker yarn or a larger hook, then obviously your foundation chain won't need to be as long and it will obviously work up even faster, but obviously I was only using a 4mm, but even then it still worked up in just one evening. So I have come to the length that I want, and I have finished on a row where you start with a double and finish with a double, so that you've got all the loops of the diamonds going all the way across. So I didn't finish on one where you start with a chain 5, I finished on the one where you start the row with a double, and that should give us hopefully the most seamless join that we can get. Obviously it will be visible, but I'm hoping it won't be as visible. So I've just finished and I've done my little chain 1, so I'm just going to pull the remainder of my yarn through, then I'm just going to tighten up on that just to tie off. I'm going to start by sewing in my first end from where we started from, and I'm just going to weave that up into my work. So you can weave this in whichever way you prefer. I'm just going to weave it up and down through some of those stitches, and then I'm just going to go back along the way I came, but working through on a different angle. So I'm going to snip off that particular end now, and I'm ready to start on my other end. Obviously if you've got a lot of yarn left over, then just snip off wherever you think you need to, because you don't want to have too much going through your needle because it can make it really fiddly. So I'm threading up my finished end, and there are lots of different ways that people like to do this. Some people like to have their scarf twisted before they sew it together, whereas I prefer to have mine flat when I sew mine together, and then I twist it as I obviously put it on. So I've got the end that I've just finished flat on the table with my knot over on the side, and then I'm just going to fold the opposite end down on top like so, and you can see it's perfectly flat all the way across. And so I'm ready now to start stitching these two together. You might not be able to see amazingly well because of obviously they're such bright colours, but this should just give you a general idea of how to do it. So obviously we're at the very end here where we've got our double crochet, and so you just want to go through the corresponding stitch on the other side. Now obviously this is our foundation chain, so you won't have a double crochet at that end. You will just have the stitches that was skipped, but you can see obviously where the base of those next stitches are coming out. You can see I've got those chains just there, so I'm going to go through into that stitch and pull that tight. And then I'm just going to wrap back around and go through that same double crochet on this side and that same stitch on the other side. So I'm just doing like a looped stitch at this point. And then just before your loop closes, just pop your thread through that hoop and then pull it closed. And that just gives us a nice secure join for that starting section. Now that the corner is nice and secure, obviously it is quite hard to stitch together a lacy scarf like this because you do get a more obvious join, but it's just the way it is, I'm afraid. So we're just going to go now all the way along with obviously your loops should correspond to loops on the other side, and we're just going to stitch them together. So just go through a stitch on each side. And pull that closed, and then through from the other side. And then back through again. And then when you get to the point where you've got a double on this side, so just here, and you'll have a double going into your foundation chain on the other side, you'll make sure you work those stitches together, and then that way your stitches should always stay in line with each other. And then again you'll start working along the chains themselves. So I always try to just go through back loops of each of those wherever possible, so that the join isn't too obvious or too big. But you're just going to continue that all the way along, joining those up as you go, and always making sure that your doubles are worked together so that you're keeping in line with all of those stitches. And I'll meet you as you get towards the other end where we will finish off. So at this point now, as you're coming to the other end, you just want to make sure that you get that very final corner stitch. You may want to go through both of the loops on this final corner one, just to make it extra secure, because this is obviously where we're going to be fastening off. I'm going to pull that through. Remember, don't pull too tight because you don't want to distort your stitches. And then I'm just going to come back round to this side and go through those same stitches again, and then keeping a loop this time, pop your needle through that loop and pull up, and then pull that one a little tighter, and then you're ready then just to weave in this end to hide it. So obviously the join is always going to be slightly obvious on these type of stitches, but as long as you've not pulled too tight, then it shouldn't distort your work or anything. It should just relatively blend. But I will turn this over in just a second so you can see. But obviously, because we've been going through most of the back stitches, it should be a little less obvious on one side than the other. So I'm just going to weave in this final tail. Okay, so I'm ready now to snip off my tail. And so here's the join from the side that we've been working on. Obviously that's how it looks, but when you turn it over, it should be a little less obvious, because on the back you'll have a very, very, very slight raise to your stitches, but on the other side you shouldn't have at all. And so obviously you will know it's there, but once it's on, it will all blend and you won't really be able to see it at all. And so obviously mine is all joined together now. And so that is my infinity scarf, my basic lace infinity scarf, ready to go. So I really hope that the joining video was useful for you, and please remember to give the video a like and subscribe if you don't already. But I really hope that you enjoy making these beautiful scarves, and I will see you for another tutorial very soon. Bye for now.